What is going on YouTube? So I did a video on Jim Harbaugh's hot seat situation earlier today. I believe I had mentioned in the video, of course, about the other hot seat situation going on right now with the head coach in the Big Ten with James Franklin, both getting a lot of attention right now, sitting in the thick of storylines around the college football landscape. And I wanted to give more of a well-crafted take, or at least try to form my opinions a little bit better for what I feel about the James Franklin situation. So I do want to preface on this. I have covered Michigan a little bit in the past, and obviously I've said I covered the Longhorns. So when I talked about the Tom Herman hot seat situation, I was a little bit more informed on the matter up front. But it does not take a genius to figure out that Penn State's in a difficult situation right now. That they might be the biggest disappointment of any team in the country through 3 games, at least for them. And the outlook is not anything but extremely dark for where Penn State sits right now. I gave 3 reasons why I feel like Michigan should part ways with Jim Harbaugh right now, given how bad their season's gone so far. But their season's gone a little bit better than Penn State's even. And their fortunes on the recruiting trail look better than Penn State's as well, which is not good for James Franklin. But I wanted to, again, touch on 3 facets here. The first being why I feel like James Franklin should go next offseason instead of right now. Building on that, the apparent lack of any sort of effort or cohesiveness or team success for Penn State this season. To start, the schedule for them was not all that difficult. And they were a preseason AP top 10 team. Anyway, that's the second reason. There's a lot to dive into there. And then the third one is always important for a head coach. And you're talking about a program like Penn State, and something as consequential as firing a head coach or parting way, whatever, with a head coach like James Franklin, the longevity on the recruiting trail. So let's go and get into the first part. Just knock it out up front why I feel like Penn State should let go of Franklin next offseason and not right now. As bad as things are going for Penn State right now, the buyout for James Franklin is really, really large. It's one of the 10 biggest buyouts of any FBS head coach. I believe as of like late October was sitting at around $38.4 million. Now, I touched on this, why I feel like Jim Harbaugh should go right now, among other things, is the fact that his buyout's only in the ballpark of like $5 million. That's very manageable for a blue blood like Michigan. While Penn State is a blue blood, has a lot of money, very notable program, $38.4 million is a lot to swallow. You're getting more into Tennessee type territory where it feels like they've got like 50 former employees still on the books that they're paying out every year. You don't want to be put in that situation. And as far as the results in the win column go right now, it can get worse, but there's really nowhere to go but up. So at least see where it goes heading into next offseason. And at least at that point, the buyout becomes a little bit more manageable and you'll have a better situation to figure out, okay, this is how we get the monetary situation sorted out. And then figure out the best candidate for the program moving forward. You have more time to do that during the offseason than if you fire a coach in early November. So let's build into the second reason, because there's more to dive into there. 0-3 start for preseason AP number 7 team is obviously nothing to ever be happy about. But the bigger problem is the way that Penn State is losing and the teams that they're losing to, because the schedule was not all that difficult to start outside of that Ohio State game. And you know what? They remain kind of competitive against Ohio State, but depending on how good Indiana ends up being, because they did look really good against Michigan, but again, it's really hard to tell how good Penn State and Michigan actually are, or really anyone in the Big Ten outside of, I would say, Ohio State and maybe Wisconsin. They should have been able to beat Maryland. There's no doubt about that. Maryland was really beating them sideways for most of the game. Penn State made a run there in the fourth quarter to kind of close the gap, but Talia Tungavailoa and that Terps team put them away pretty early. That game against Indiana could have swung either way. So it's close to Penn State being 1-2, if you want to look at it that way. And the Ohio State game, they lost by about 2 possessions. That could have gone a lot worse given where they're sitting at now. But, at least given the fact that they could be 1-2 reasonably right now, and they've got a couple winnable games coming up against Nebraska and Iowa. You know what? The rest of the games for the regular season are winnable. Realistic scenario where they could win 4 of their final 5 games and at least make a bowl game. At least head into the momentum with something to be proud about. If you let go of James Franklin at this point, sure, it could give you an injection of energy. But if you end up losing even more games, say to like Nebraska, Iowa, and Michigan State, things do get worse heading into the offseason. So at least while there are some bright spots in certain parts of games and some things that could have swung more Penn State's way to at least give them 1 win through 3 games, I would be a little bit more patient with James Franklin in that regard. Now, the third, and I'm not saying that you should see where it goes this offseason unless they just destroy the competition the rest of the way, catch some luck, end up in a good bowl game, win that, kill the results on the recruiting trail, all that. It's hard to see a situation where James Franklin sticks around beyond the offseason. But the third reason for this is the results on the recruiting trail. Now, I will say this, Penn State's 2022 class is shaping up pretty good early on. They've got multiple blue chips in their 2022 class, I believe 6 right now, which is really impressive. They're a top 3 ranked 2022 class in the country, but the situation with Tom Herman and Texas losing Quinn Ewers and pretty much the entirety of their building blocks of the 2022 class in almost the blink of an eye is a solid reminder that when a program starts faltering and starts showing some cracks for the future, that you can lose that class pretty quick. Where I really want to build off of their bad results on the recruiting trail for Franklin is with the 2021 class for Penn State. They have 14 commits right now, which isn't great, just like 5-6 weeks ahead of the early signing period. They don't have a single 5-star commit outside of what looks like 1 commit inside the 247 composite top 100. They only have 1 commit that even actually ranks in the top 250. So they don't have their class ranks number 31 in the nation right now. They're in the back half of the Big Ten rankings. There's not a whole lot of risk to parting ways with Franklin, even saying like that, I believe what they like to call Black Monday after the regular season ends, but that's going to be pushed back a little bit this year. So say sometime around like mid-December. That would be a little bit more realistic. Again, the buyout gets lower. You might have a chance to flip a few commits ahead of National Signing Day, depending on who you would bring in as head coach and how much traction they have on the trail from the get-go. I mean, Penn State needs quality and quantity right now in the 2021 class, at least. So if there's firm commitments in the 2022 class, even if you have to sacrifice losing 1 or 2 commits and still keeping an otherwise solid group together, making a coaching staff change there does make a lot of sense. So, the longevity of a program is always taken into account by recruiting results and coaching stability, but those 2 things kind of coincide with one another. So you have the coaching stability and the success you're going to follow with usually successful results on the recruiting trail. And there's not a whole lot to feel good about in terms of the coaching stability right now for Penn State. Those are kind of my 3 reasons, though, for why I would at least wait till the offseason to let go of James Franklin. But given the 0-3 start, like I said, unless they completely turn a page and start not just winning, but winning big, catapult whatever team they play in the postseason, and then also finish with a top 20 class, I would say, for 2021 and start even building more momentum for 2022, it's hard to see James Franklin lasting even through the beginning of the 2021 season. Penn State could have a really good team next year, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Given the loss of Michael Parsons on defense, again, that's a huge hit to them. I believe they had a few COVID-19 opt-outs. And again, that's actually, to mention it, that's another reason why I would give James Franklin at least until the offseason. But you have a real opportunity if you're Penn State to start fresh next season. And again, Penn State's a destination job. So with kind of this smooth recruiting transition in place, I think you get a pretty big candidate there if you take your time with it. So anyway, that is pretty much it. Again, given that the buyout's so extreme and a few other factors at play. I completely get wanting to let go of James Franklin, but at the same time, I think you got to be a little bit more patient with the process. Penn State's not in as good of a position right now to buy out their head coach again as say a Michigan would be. So anyway, that is pretty much it. See ya.